This, what I have in my hand, it is 9 pounds, 14 ounces, a baby boy, perhaps the next myth.
If anyone has been living with their head in the sand and doesn't know, your dad was the 3-time Mr. Olympia, Sergio Oliva Jr., and also known as the Myth. And we saw a little on the intro, a little clip of him holding you up as a baby at that show. And you know, I have to imagine that it must have been, I can't fathom it, but what was it like growing up with him as a dad? Because a lot of people, myself included, I don't know very much about Sergio. I never got a chance to really speak with him very much, especially in his younger years. What was it like having him as a dad and being in the household as a youngster?
Yeah, it's weird because it wasn't until I got into bodybuilding that I kind of really realized and appreciated who and what he was. I mean, that whole nickname of the Myth, I mean, it really does apply really well with him. You know, just the measurements that he had. I mean, if someone said that somebody was coming out today and had those measurements, you'd be like, no, that's just a myth. But he was just my dad. And it's weird because, yeah, we'd go out, you know, to dinner and people want his autograph and stuff like that. But I never looked at him as like Mr. Olympia. If anything, I looked at him as a cop because by the time I was born, my dad was already done, and he was a Chicago cop for 30 years. So it was more of having a dad as a cop more than a Mr. Olympia. But once I got into the sport, it's kind of when I really realized that, I mean, yeah, this guy was the shit for sure. But it's weird because my dad was like, he was one of the best bodybuilders ever, but only on stage. One of the things that I really liked about him a lot was that he felt like that was his job and that was it. I've never seen my dad flex. I've never seen my dad pose. You know, he wasn't the guy walking around with his shirt off and stuff like that. And I kind of liked that. I liked the whole idea that he's not walking around with, you know, invisible lat syndrome. He never was that guy. But you're right. A lot of people don't know him, like you were saying. He got burned. He had so many grudges with the business back in the day, which is something that no one will ever deal with. No one ever in the history of bodybuilding will ever deal with being dark-skinned and being first Hispanic to ever win a Mr. Olympia and dealing with all the offstage stuff that was going on back in the day. The problem was that he didn't know how to turn it off. He didn't know how to turn off those grudges and leave it in the past. So exactly, he was kind of really standoffish and he kind of disappeared, and a lot of people never really got to meet him when he was in his prime. And yeah, he never told me any stories. Every story that I ever learned about my dad was always from someone else. And man, Dave, I hate school. School is not my thing. And I realized before I know it, I'm reading these encyclopedias cover to cover. And I'm like, man, even if my body's not meant for this, I'm mentally loving this. And that's when I just started. I wanted to join a gym. And that's when I realized how much my dad didn't want me to do it. I tried to join a gym in Chicago, and my dad, he called them and told them to not let me join. And, you know, yeah, I think he's just so that Cuban old school where he only went to 3rd grade. I'm sure he told everybody his whole life, my son's going to be a doctor. He's going to be a lawyer, you know, something. He just had this whole plan for me. And then it doesn't happen. The only thing that bothers me is that whole video that you posted, the whole holding me up. You can't hold me up and be like, this is gonna be the next myth, and then now 18 years later that guy's trying to do it and you're like, no. And not only no, you're trying to make sure that doesn't happen.
Do you think that your dad, there was any jealousy there at all? I mean, because it seems kind of unusual that, you know, that he wouldn't want his son to gain, maybe obviously with the genetics you had, to have the same, you know, potential opportunities that he had, you know.
Yeah, that's what my mom thinks. She says that all the time. I don't think so. I just think that when my dad left, he probably for sure, if I know him, was like, I'm never going to come back and none of my family will ever give you business. And then shit, 18 years later, now my son wants to get into it. I think he went out with such a horrible like out that the last thing he wanted was for me to have to maybe kiss ass in the sport again. And that's what I was trying to explain to him, that the sport is different. There's definitely politics for sure. But the whole having to kiss ass and struggle to be a colored person in the sport, it's just over. It's not like that anymore.
What made you decide to say, you know what, I'm going to ditch Farah and I'm going to go to Cursicito And what was the difference when you started working with Chris from the prep with George?
I think I kind of went off of, George Farah and he is who he is, and, this awe around him. And I just kind of went in blindly with that diet. And then about 3/4 in, I realized that I don't think this guy was doing anything on purpose. I think he was just so busy that whenever I was sending in pics or asking for help, I was getting really like short answers or really a lot of bullshit. And I actually talked to, but it's George Farah, right? So he is who he is. So you kind of just have to just do it. And everyone was asking me, what do I feel about him and how do I feel about the prep? And my answer was, we'll see at USA's. And towards the end, when it was almost time to do the show, I realized things that need to be coming in way before a month out weren't. And once I started asking him, like, how can I work harder? I'm sure he has so many people that are so lazy, and all these gurus have people that are just not wanting to work hard. I was more asking about how can I do something to step up the game? I want to bring my glutes in shredded. I want to bring my hams in. And the answers I was getting weren't really the right answers. And I actually talked to someone else who had worked with him. I'm not going to name any names, but he got them their pro card. And after they got their pro card, I realized they weren't working with him anymore. So I thought that was kind of odd. And I talked to him, and he said along the kind of same things that I was going through. So he told me some tricks to do and to test them out and to see if really this guy is helping me or if someone else is just sending me a diet that's just a cookie cut diet. And that's what it was. I caught him in some lies and some stuff like that. And towards the end, I just started doing my own diet. I started changing things up. I just started doing it on my own. And after we placed, second, which was really good, especially the lineup, I wanted to start again and get ready for nationals. I realized my diet was being the same shit again. It was the same diet. And that's when I realized I can't go through this again. I'm the kind of guy, I'll work to the bone. I'll do whatever you say. You tell me to eat dog shit to win a show, and I'm going to do it. But if you're telling me to stop doing cardio and stop doing things that really aren't going to hurt, then I know something's wrong. So, for instance, one of the first things I was told by Farah was a list of hashtags and things that I'm supposed to put in my posts to try and help his career out. And already that was kind of a little strange. But you know what? I don't care. If you're helping me out, I will help you out too. But it wasn't until I talked to Chris. And then again, the first thing he tells me is once we decided to work together, because of course I'm still in Farah mode. I'm like, I want to tell the world, I want to make posts about it. And Chris goes, man, I don't care. He's like, man, don't post anything. It doesn't matter.
First of all, I want to just go on record. I don't believe that George Farah would ever lie to you because that's just not in his makeup. But having said that,